It's almost the break. So, well, thanks for everyone who's staying here. We're going to have a panel discussion trying to share some myths and belief around the blockchain and gaming and trying to make those excellent speakers that I'm going to introduce or let introduce themselves, share with you. So we have Alex here first.
Hey, I'm Alex. My company is Azarus. We are building on EOS.io, which makes us a blockchain company, but we're not a blockchain game. We allow players, on top of existing games such as Rainbow Six Siege, which is the one we launched with, to create their own rules, stakes, and rewards on the games they already play. So it's basically, I'm going to, let's see who's the best at making headshots on Rainbow Six Siege. I bet I can make more than you on over 3 games. And that run, yeah, I'm really good now. And that's Azarus. We basically pull the data, analyze what's going on in the game, and execute those challenges in a trusted, distributed, and transparent environment.
Hey, everybody. I'm Jeff from Axie Infinity. And Axie is a digital pet universe where you can battle, collect, raise these beautiful creatures called Axies. Yeah, we're built on Ethereum. We're also using Loom. Yeah, I think it's just generally an amazing, cute, fun game, but with the added caveat of really empowering your players by giving them the ability to actually monetize their time and actually freely trade their game assets.
We have Nick.
Yeah, hi, I'm Nick Hu from DOGIgames.com. So we are a blockchain game media based in China, Beijing and Shanghai. So since the start of CryptoKitties, we have helped many, I'd say basically all major crypto games coming into China. So including from the very start, CryptoKitties, and then Ethermount, Crypto Celebrities, Crypto Countries, if you call that crypto game, and then East Town, and I think probably when the sandbox comes out, we will have a community for sandbox. So we build communities, game communities, and when we help people to understand what blockchain game is, and we translate English stuff and French stuff and everything, other languages into Chinese to help Chinese players to understand the games that are not in their mother language. So personally, I've spent, I guess, over 2,000 Ether on crypto games. So I guess when I bought them, the price was like 500K US dollar, something like that. So, and I bought and sold because my background is it's a fund manager. I still have a fund in stock market right now. So I enjoy trading crypto assets. Yeah. So thank you. Yeah.
Wow. And Gabby?
All right, I'm Gabby Dizon. You just heard about me, so I won't say much. Creator of Battle Racers. We're based in the Philippines, building our game on Ethereum and launching on Decentraland very soon.
Excellent, thank you. So we have a very diverse panel here with game developer and more. One of the first questions I will ask them is, what does blockchain bring to a game or your service?
I can take that one. So actually I have a talk on that tomorrow afternoon. But my point of view here is that a lot of you guys know about NFTs. I think that's pretty obvious. We have heard so much about NFTs used in games. That's clear. What I would like to give some perspective on is how games are not just about the item. Games are about the physics. Games are about the rules. Games are about the art. Games are about the players themselves as a community. And every one of those aspects can leverage a system that brings trust, transparency, accountability, atomic transactions. One of my favorite subjects when I'm not looking at the NFT angle, obviously, is challenges. It's basically deciding your own rules. I want to play Rainbow, but I'm not that good. Or I want to play Fortnite, but I'm never going to make that victory royale. That said, for me, winning is just beating my friend and making more kills than he does. And that's how I win. And those kind of behavior, basically, playing a game, setting your own rules, that's basically empowering players to decide how they want to play the game that they like, and providing a way to make it in a trusted environment where there's always a sore loser, you know, like, no, you didn't win, you know, it didn't count, your kill was fake, but the data doesn't lie, and the contract will execute what's coming from the game. And so that's an interesting use case. Another one is guilds. Has anyone of you guys played World of Warcraft? Yeah. Who's in a guild, or has been in a guild?
Guild.
Guild. Guild? Okay, guild. Guildon, okay. Okay, so how did you like your experience being in a guild? Like that or like that? Okay, that's a good one. Same here. Always lots of discussion. Where do we go? Battle? What's going to be the shape of the team going there? Which characters and how do we split the loot? Like endless discussions. Perfect for distributed organization. It's like the OG use case of distributed organization applied to building communities around games. So it's like all those different aspects can be impacted and can be made better using blockchain technology. It's just about really looking at the game more as a construct. What can I give to my players? How can I empower them? And how can I give them control? Control is ownership. It's also control of the rules, control of the art, control of the community. And how can I basically leverage that new tool that we have to create new type of experiences?
Thanks, Alex. So I'm going to give parole to Jeff now, talking also about how they are empowering the player and leveraging blockchain in a way that's not found in free-to-play games, more specifically your community.
So the question is,
well, what haven't you found? What have you found in the blockchain game and communities that you haven't in traditional free-to-play games?
Definitely, definitely. So I think that one of the keys about a blockchain game is that you're actually able to break down the kind of wall that exists between developers and players. I think a lot of like free-to-play mobile developers, they just see their players as like bags of money that they're trying to extract as much money from as quickly as possible. Whereas with a blockchain game, you actually align incentives with the community because they actually have assets in your game. One of the reasons that they join your ecosystem is for actually monetary value and financial gain. And I think that actually blockchain developers have to really embrace this. Treat your players like they're investors in your ecosystem and true stakeholders. Communicate with them as if they're distributed VC fund that backed your project early on. And yeah, I think like your players will love you for this. And what we've seen is there's so many different types of ways to contribute to our ecosystem. So people are streaming, they're making paintings, they're building tools on top of our game, they're actually doing user acquisition, they're doing customer support. A lot of our players are in the US and we're sleeping sometimes, maybe 4 hours at least. And we can wake up and see, oh, like there were some problems, some people have questions, but our players, they answered all the questions and there's nothing left outstanding. So I think, yeah, like right now blockchain gaming communities are quite small relative to like a conventional game, but I really see our players as members of the team. So you could say that the Axie, community has 1,000 players, or you could say that the Axie team has 1,000 people on it. And I think it's somewhere between those.
Fantastic. Wow. Very impressive. I wish like all blockchain games have such communities so powerful and participating in every game. So moving to a next question, like probably you've seen some blockchain game of only the non-fungible tokens. Some of them have actual cryptocurrency, ERC20. Gabby, can you tell us maybe what's your thought about that?
So my thought about that is that if you are coming up with your blockchain game, don't try to do your own token first. Play with the NFTs. It's very tempting to do your own token and sell it to people and make money via something that looks like an ICO. It will be problematic if you haven't seen through the consequences of that, especially if that token is used for payment in your game, because a lot of your token will be held by investors who may or may not participate in your game. So of course, there's no one way to do this, but what the approach that I like to see is to build value in the economy first with your NFTs, with your game assets, build a community, build a player base, and then maybe you can introduce a utility token that's inside your game that will gain value because there is actual utility and usage inside the game, and then maybe you can sell more of that. But if you're trying to sell your token, ERC20 token for investment based on a hypothetical economy that does not yet exist, it puts you in a hole to actually execute to the size of the economy that you modeled on your spreadsheet. And if you don't do that, it will really mess up your entire game.
Want to add something, Alex?
Yeah, actually, I would push it one step further. My personal opinion here is that if you look at NFT tokens, they are the new way of monetizing those games. I think you've said something really right. It's about making sure that we do not see players as bags of money. What's really interesting about NFT is that they basically allow to offer an opportunity to get something of value that they can own for the player. And that kind of breaks what we've been doing for the past 10 years on mobile, which is creating frustration to push that bag of money to open up and to shell out some gold coins in our wallets. And I think that's really important. It's really treating the player as a community, offering them when they deserve it, and it's really important that they deserve it. It's not about like, I'm going to buy that item because I'm a whale and I'm going to pay to win. No, I have to prove my might. I have to go through the grind. I have to be part of that community and be a player amongst other players. And maybe I have some more means and I get to buy the really cool sword, but it's going to be a proof of my skills and my involvement, not of how deep my pockets are. And it's really thinking about it that way that makes a game economy balanced, a community healthy, and not just basically a lure for investors to throw their money in and go make like a weird investment, something that they don't really master. So pushing it even further, I would say that in most cases, a token is a liability in those games. If you think about making a game to make a token, and then you have to spend the rest of your life worrying about the value of that token and not about the health of your community or the real core values of your games. And so just stressing out, like I've seen so many games going the wrong path because they wanted to sell a token, not make a game. This is not what we're doing. We need to make games that make people happy and create communities of fans that like the gameplay and like playing together. That's what games are.
Yeah, so our experience with this is, so we actually thought of introducing a token last year before, there was gameplay, before the community was very robust, and we decided against it. We thought it would be disingenuous to actually, we had already sold NFTs and game assets. We thought it would be disingenuous to do a token sale immediately after, and also maybe, not maximizing the opportunity for that token. I do think that it's quite interesting to introduce a native token for a game economy, but I think, as Gabby said, you have to build utility, you have to build a community, and then once you have an economy, it's quite easy to actually redirect some of that money flow through that token. So that's the approach that we're taking at Axie. We haven't really made too many announcements regarding our token, but I believe my colleague Alex will be talking about it tomorrow. So definitely tune in.
Maybe Nick can give us a perspective as a player.
I have a different opinion, actually.
Great.
I think that it really depends on what kind of players you're able to attract. Like, I believe these guys are very good at attracting players that are fancy about NFTs. But there are players who just love playing with tokens. They love the going ups and downs of the value of their tokens. And I've seen some real cases in Chinese community. The first one is New World. I know if you guys heard about this game. The peak valuation of this game was like, I think, $20 million US. That was like last year, and right now the valuation of this token is still about like $10 million US. So this game is about, at the beginning of this game, issue is token, NASH, and Actually, the game doesn't have many NFTs, but it worked because the game is very good at attracting people who love playing with token economy and stuff. Yeah, so I think it really depends on what kind of players or contributors or stakeholders you are able to attract. Yeah.
Great. Let's stay with you on the next question. So you've played so many games. Can you tell us what are the requirements to play those games and why you think it's a friction point there?
The requirements of playing these games.
In general, for an audience that's not yet familiar
wallets,
with the
right?
Yes,
like
exactly.
digital wallets. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Do you think we can do without?
Yeah, actually, in China we see like there are two kinds of games. There are one game you can call that the app. So that's based on blockchain. They have NFTs, and they have some of them have tokens. Some of them don't. But there are another type of games. They call themselves blockchain game, but they only use the tokens. They don't have anything else but the tokens on the blockchain. So for the first type of game, which are the apps, you're gonna need like cryptocurrency wallets. You're gonna need like something like MetaMask, or you need something like if you're on US chain, you're gonna need One or something US wallets. But if you're talking about the second type of games, you don't need anything of them. You just need a like cell phone or a PC, because you are playing a game without like at the beginning of the game you don't need any knowledge about cryptocurrencies, and then when you pay something in the game or when you withdraw money from the game, you're gonna need some knowledge about the cryptocurrencies. So I think there are like two types of things happening right now.
Yeah, like building on that, I think in the future there will be no wallet, and that's really my strong belief. And I've been pretty vocal about it since we built Azarus. Without a wallet, we make everything we can to avoid friction. I always start when I do a talk showing the onboarding of CryptoKitties. And the onboarding on CryptoKitties is like step one, MetaMask. Boom, you lost 90% of the users you managed to acquire. And this will not scale. It can scale to maybe a few 100,000. I met earlier today someone making a wallet that has 500,000 users, and that's definitely one of the magnitude larger than anything else I know and heard of. But it's still nothing compared to 2 billion players out there.
Don't you think that 2 or 3 years from now, every browser or phone will come embedded with a wallet of some sort?
Maybe. But for sure, the user will not know about it. Just like Windows going passwordless, all that trend about humans are not machines. We cannot remember passwords, or very hardly. Or we will fail, we will forget them, we will lose our coins. Who has lost his bitcoins one day? I have. Thank you. There's 2 of us. I mean, we're not machines. And passwords, adding more software to our phones, all those things are friction that will be in the way of us getting players to play our game. And so, yeah, wallet, it's like no wallet. If you can make it without a wallet, if you can find a way, use generation 3 blockchain, so no MetaMask, you can do very clever things using, for instance, the EOS.io or all those other new generation blockchains. But there are many ways today where you can enable, bring the benefits of blockchain without having to go through the hurdle of a wallet.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be like different levels of security. Right now, like the more secure you make the assets, the harder the UX is going to be. But a normal person who's only like dealing with up to like $100 of game assets, like they don't need the same level of security as someone who's like, bought hundreds of thousands of NFTs. So I think like the security level in the future will be opt-in, and the more heavily invested people, they'll figure out, or they'll have like some way to secure their assets. But the base onboarding for the masses, the normal people, muggles I call them, it should be quite easy, and their assets don't need to be secure, and therefore we can onboard them quite smoothly.
All right, so last question before we jump to the public. Can you share with us maybe one mistake or something that you thought you were super right about and you totally missed out or did wrong on your project? Everyone try to answer quickly.
There are too many mistakes in my head to kind of figure out which was the worst one.
Who want to start?
When CryptoKitties Generation 0 was priced at about 1 Ether, I bought a lot. Right now it's like 0.1.
I think you bought mine.
Oh, really?
Did you have a bot that was buying on Valentine's Day?
No, I didn't use bot.
Oh, okay. There was a bot that bought like thousands at 1.5, and we were just listing at 1.5. We were buying at 0.3, listing at 1.5. That was crazy. Okay. I see. Yeah, that was a crazy event.
Beginner's mistake.
Yeah, the biggest mistake, the business. You go for it.
All right. So for us, you have to incorporate just how unpredictable gas is when you're designing your game. So we did a mechanism which was actually free for the player, wherein we open a crate for them, and then they receive the NFT free because we were paying for the gas. The problem was that whenever gas spiked, the transaction would get stuck, and it resulted in people not being able to get their items for maybe hours or days, which made them really angry. And even though they knew how blockchain worked, just the act of buying something and not receiving it makes people very angry. So we had to massively overpay for what the Oracle said gas was costing, just to make sure that people would get their items on time.
Cool. Great tip.
I think for us, I think our very early community are quite like competitive, like aggressive people. So we wanted to go with like a PvP feature as our first like kind of as our first battle feature, but looking back, it might have been better to have PvE, because then you don't have to have a live matching system. If you have a live matching system, then you have to have actually a large community before you can do like real-time battles. So actually right now, like we're just releasing real-time battles right now. I think maybe a better roadmap would have been to do PvE in the beginning, like just play against the AI or whatever, have some reward system there, and then once we grow the community, then we release real-time battles with live matching. So that's a small mistake, I guess.
I would say the biggest mistake, I don't think we did very big mistakes at Azarus. Honestly, I mean, we've been really fast at going from the product we released in September to going to a big seed round a few months ago. So I think we did a few things right. I would say the thing that I did personally in the blockchain space, and that was a mistake, is trading on Kraken. That was a big mistake.
Does it have to be related to your project?
I mean, it would have changed the way I would have funded the project, right?
What did you
do in your project? No, what I did change in the project, though, we started a project actually in 2017, so that was 2 years ago. And at that time, we were looking at ICOs, how to fund the project was still a thing, in 2017. But really fast, it became not a thing. If you remember, like November, December, everybody was looking at the token prices dipping, and we were like, okay, so as we were building the product, we were like, is ICO still a thing? And we sort of like, we kind of battled with the idea of an ICO internally for like 6 to 9 months. Like, is there still a market for that? Yes, no. Is it still a way of actually funding something with an ICO today? Is it legal? Does it make sense? Will whales still have liquidity by the time we go to market? It's like, and this has been, I wouldn't say it has been a mistake, but it has been such like an up and down in all the discussion, because we started literally at the tip of the market, and then we hope that that cycle will reproduce, and did not. And we're like, okay, no, forget about it. We're going equity.
Okay. The issue, if you're trying to make a compliant token, you can't really make a good token, right? You have to you have to figure out a lot of like loopholes to create a compliant token that is actually something that is worth money. So the SEC is actually holding back a lot of innovation and losing a lot of people money, because people are too afraid of going to jail by releasing a good token and sending it to good people. So yeah, now like you have to basically do a lot of legal work to make sure that you're creating a token that you can distribute to U.S. players.
Yeah. And it's very expensive to do that.
Legal fees and time and energy that's lost instead of building product and the game. All right, so let's move to a question from the public. Anyone has a question for our panelists?
The best question will get this puff.
Aha, incentive, airdrop of plushes. Don't be shy.
Come on, questions?
Nobody wants this.
I have a question for you.
He just wants the plushie.
All right, I'm ready.
So, what do you think? Why is Axie Infinity the best blockchain game in the world? It is the best question.
I mean, so I think that we have a rare combination of people who understand monetary theory, game theory, incentive design, also like obviously like some of the best smart contract developers in the world, and then also we've been able to add game designers from kind of mainstream game companies over time. So I think we have like a rare combination of talent. The types of people that work on our team aren't necessarily people who would have ever gone into game development, because I mean I see like normal free-to-play mobile game development as a scam. Like I actually broke up with my girlfriend because she was spending money on Clash Royale. I just thought it was like something that no rational human would ever do. So like I think like we have a very good understanding of what the problems are with traditional games. I never spent money on games until like I turned 0.5 Ether into CryptoKitties. I turned 0.5 ETH into 150 ETH by selling to people like you, I guess. So I think we have a really good.
You deserve the plushies for that.
We have a good understanding of like NFT economies. Like we've seen the growth of the space. I think we've been flexible with like adopting good ideas, like also creating some stuff that's our own. But I mean, I wouldn't say that Axie Infinity is like 100% the best blockchain game. But yeah, okay. All right, so submission received. We will get back to you soon.
Thank you.
Who in the audience is developing blockchain games? Okay, few of them. So who would just make normal games, mobile, free-to-play, or PC? Not so much. So what would be a... What I'm doing? I don't know. We still have time? Is it finished?
We just have very shy people in the audience.
One more question.
I asked this question this morning, but I don't think I get a good answer, so I ask it again. The question I asked to the panel in the morning was that what are the factors that make a good game, and in what way does the blockchain help you to improve those factors? Is that understood?
I think there are many factors that make a good game, but we can probably talk about one slice of each. There was something that was being said earlier about aligned incentives. If you put in $1,000 in, for example, a typical game, then you may own some of the assets inside the game, but you never see them. Once you delete the app, these are all gone. What we like about incentive alignment is that if you own these assets, then you own them, you can sell them to other people. You don't have to ask for permission from anyone to do it. And I really like just the incentive alignment between the developers and your player base.
I think like basically all blockchain is a data storage layer, right? But what Web3 is about, what this revolution about, what Bitcoin is originally about letting anyone be the custody of their own data, and that data being money, right? Like money is now just a number and a spreadsheet. Therefore, why shouldn't anyone be able to own that? So now now we've established, right, that this revolution is about ownership of your personal data. A game asset is actually just also a line of code. But yeah, why should it have to exist on the company's server? Just like you can now truly own your money, you can now truly own your game assets. And when you have that freedom, it does something to change the kind of way that you approach a game, the freedom. You do have freedom in this ecosystem. Now, like, I guess, so that's just like what blockchain adds to a game. To answer like what makes a good game, like, I mean, that's something, that's an art, right? Like, so like, amazing, entrancing art is important, like addictive gameplay that isn't like just repetitive. a social. I think all the best games have some type of social aspect, but that's not necessarily a requirement. Music, a soundtrack, right, like an entrancing universe. So those are all things that, yeah, you can make obviously good games that have all those things. And you don't need blockchain for them. But blockchain is very good for a certain type of game that involves a kind of player-driven economy. So, for example, it's good to also see what games in the past would have been good as a blockchain game. And that's kind of a framework that I like to look at, right? Neopets, I think, was a great example because there was actually already a secondary market. People were trading their pets between each other. I actually used to make money playing Neopets, but it was actually quite annoying because sometimes people would, do credit card reversions and basically try and scam me. And that's impossible in a blockchain game because you're using a trustless transfer mechanism. So, yeah.
I would say that blockchain does not make a great game. First, you need to have a good game. And games are targeting different audiences. I may not like the same game as that guy. I like competition, multiplayer, online, social. This is important for me. I'm less of a grinder in Quest, in RPG, solo RPGs, not really my type, not anymore. And from one player to another, we have different expectations. And that's why there's so many different games out there. So first, you have to take a game that actually does a good job at creating those dopamine spike, that's pleasure, that will of starting the game, launching the client, and spending the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour ahead of you to play that game. Now, what blockchain does, what we call alignment incentive or whatnot, is basically we are giving back control to the community, whether it's controlling the assets, controlling the rules of the ecosystem, whether to nerf or buff a player. All those elements can be in the hands of the community of players. And that's really what blockchain brings. It's not me as a game designer, I decide the rule, I'm the dictator of that game, and I get to say whether that character is nerfed or buffed. You all who play the game can have a word in it because you are the players. You spend tons of money on that game, and your opinion matters. Those kind of elements are enabled because it's a tool that helps bring trust, transparency, distribution. So that's what it brings. So it's really about, take a good game. Any good game can be augmented with blockchain, and you can empower your community. Maybe that will get your community to play the game longer LTV, longer engagement. Maybe they will just take ownership of the game, and that's what you want as a game developer. You want the players to feel that this is their thing, they are their folks, it's their game. And that's how you keep people playing longer.
Yeah, let me try this one. I really like this question because I've been thinking this question since I played my first crypto games. So my answer is a question. What makes basketball better than football? What I'm trying to say is all the blockchain game is a game experience. It's a totally different game experience. Like you play, when you play basketball, you will have a different gaming experience than football. So all the good things that these guys are trying to say, and maybe what you heard from the panel in the morning, in my opinion, a game experience. Like you can feel the decentralized assets, you can feel the token economy and everything about blockchain, all the blockchain empowers. But when it comes down to the game, it's just a game. These are the experience you can get from a game. If you like the game experience, okay, it's a good game for you. If you don't like the experience, it's not a good game for you, or it's not your game. Like when more people are enjoying the new experience that blockchain game can give them, then maybe a blockchain game can go to a larger scale. Thank you. That's my 2 cents.
All right. Thank you. We have time for more questions, or should we wrap up? One more. All right. There. In the rear.
So since I walked into this conference this morning, everyone has been talking about NFTs nonstop. But my question is NFT the only way out? Do we have like any other thing interesting about blockchain games that we can possibly explore? Like how about cryptocurrency esports?
I think that's what they're building, right?
Well,
I wouldn't call that cryptocurrency esports, but for sure, like I said, what's your favorite game?
My favorite? World of Warcraft.
Excellent. So that's the example of the guild. In a guild that just use the DAO to organize how players decide to play together, who leads the party, who gets to be the healer, and what's the split in the, how do we split the loot. And of course the healer in the back is never going to kill anyone in the front, but the healer in the back is essential to keeping the warriors on the front line alive. So, it's really about understanding how do you define those rules, and you can code that as a contract and run your guild in a trusted and transparent place and not have those awkward discussions in forum that last forever. But I was the healer, but I didn't kill the guy, but I was very important to the party. Same as the proof of wins. If I'm going to go in a PvP on World of Warcraft against you, maybe it's going to be a best out of 5 matches, best 3 out of 5, for instance. And the blockchain can keep track of those records and then execute the gold transfer at the end of the contract. There's so many layers. Take any action that you do in a game and look at what would transparency, trust, and distribution bring to that behavior? Can we make it better? In many cases, you will find that you can. Come to my talk tomorrow.
So I think there's a lot of interesting potential in terms of, so a lot of people in the blockchain gaming space like to talk about like interop between like games and games, right? Bringing your asset from one game to another. Like I'm actually not a huge fan of this idea, or I think it's overhyped. What I'm most interested in for Axie is like integrating with some of the most powerful smart contracts that exist, period, right? So for example, we just partnered with MakerDAO, which is a decentralized credit facility built on top of Ethereum. So imagine a world where, there's actually a bank inside of our game run by NPCs, but it's kind of operates like a pawn shop, right? So you have the NPCs saying, hey, like, I can lend you this, but you got to leave something with me, right? And that kind of makes like open finance more like relatable, understandable to a normal person. If you have it, rather than someone reading a blog post about like the smart contract and how it works, you just have an NPC kind of explaining it in kind of normal muggle terms, I guess, to just a player in the game economy, right? So I think there's a lot of like really interesting stuff that we're just scraping the surface on. So yeah, it's definitely not just about NFTs. You could have a blockchain game, right, that just uses cryptocurrency as a reward. Like I think it's fair to consider that kind of a blockchain game as well.
There are 2 concepts that I like. One is immutable records. So these are great for things like contests and tournaments, wherein maybe everyone lists their actions on-chain, and then the game or the contest decides how it's resolved, and no one can really complain that they were cheated on because all of the moves were on-chain. And the other one I really like is provenance. So these may or may not be blockchain items, for example, but if you have provenance on who owned which item, it may actually increase the value of item in the same way that art increases depending on who owned it previously. So for example, if you are in an esports tournament and the winning player used this sword to vanquish the enemy and win the tournament, and then you put that sword up for auction afterwards. So it's like auctioning off a game jersey of someone who just won a championship. So yeah, provenance is very interesting as well.
I think the reason that you heard too many NFTs is because that all these guys are making NFTs, so they want to sell NFTs to you. So they have to say that like That's in their self-interest to talk about NFTs and how good NFTs is. And yeah, I think the blockchain itself is in a very, very early stage, and people are exploring many, many things. There are as far as I know, there are several companies that are exploring in the tokens in esports, and I've seen some products already fail about that. So some issues, some tokens, I say they are going to do great things about esports, and their token value just boom. Like, yes, that's right.
I know that.
Yeah.
They're launching soon.
Yeah, so we will see about that, yeah.
Good. We're good, I think. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the answers, providing us this insight.
Thank you.
Thank you.